And welcome to Full Circle. The impeachment trial of President Donald J. Trump could be nearing its final stages right now. Senators are well into their second day of question and answer sessions. They're expected to take a dinner break any moment. They're given 16 hours total, as you probably know, spread over 2 days. This is the last day where Republicans and Democrats ask handwritten questions of both the president's defense team and Democratic House managers. I say the trial could be nearing its final stages because tomorrow the Senate is expected to vote on whether or not to allow new evidence like witnesses and documents. Now, if they vote that down, they could move right on to either acquitting or removing the President of the United States. If they vote for new evidence, there's certainly a lot more that could happen. From the very beginning of the Ukraine affair, comparisons, of course, have been made to past impeachment proceedings, including those surrounding Watergate. So joining me tonight to answer some of my questions and yours, legendary Watergate journalist Carl Bernstein. Welcome back, Full Circle. Thanks for being with us.
Good to be with you.
It seems like even now, though, with the clock running into the final hours of this back and forth, Democrats are still pushing to try to get witnesses.
Well, there should be, because there's information to be known. There finally is, as in Watergate, the equivalent of John Dean, which is to say somebody who was in the Oval Office with the President of the United States. All along until this last phase, the Republicans have been saying, there's no human being that has testified to confirm what the Democrats have said.
In fact, the Republicans, the counsel for the president have actually been kind of using that as a cudgel against the Democrats, saying
the whole way through
there's no eyewitness testimony about this.
And of course, now there is. And now they don't want to hear from that eyewitness. And clearly that eyewitness has some damaging testimony. But the interest should be in the truth, not whether it's damaging or not. And also there are degrees of damaging. I can certainly understand how if Bolton gets up there might be aspects that could be developed that would be exculpatory or limit the damage. But what's the truth that the Republicans are obstructing? They are covering up. I think we got to use that word over and over and over.
You see the senators as culpable in a cover-up?
There's no question about it, because the information is at hand, whether exculpatory or whether it would condemn the president in some way, or whether it's contextual that would help all of us understand what occurred better. It can help inform the Senate reach a fair decision in a trial.
I was so surprised yesterday by one of the questions, I think it was from Mitt Romney, which was a very smart question to the president's counsel, which is, when did the president decide and when did he announce when did he tell people to hold back the aid? They said there's no record of that there's no evidence of that in the public record. The fact that we don't even know something as basic and simple as when did this policy, get transmitted from the president to others, it's extraordinary. We don't know that.
It's not only extraordinary, there are two reasons we don't know. One, the documents have been withheld,
right.
The OMB documents as well as others that would enable the investigators, the Senate, the House to trace a trail of how these decisions were made. Those documents have been withheld under orders of the President of the United States.
It's also the kind of thing.
But now we have a human being that can probably answer the question, and they're going, oh no, we can't hear from that.
Well, I mean, even
being.
the attorneys could. They're the attorneys for the president. They could theoretically just ask the president and get back to Mitt Romney. Today they could have done that.
Obstruction has been the name of the game since this investigation began. The other name of the game has been conspiracy theories. To invent conspiracy theories to make the conduct of others, which we've seen in the Trump presidency throughout, the conduct of Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all the questions in which the president's behavior is questionable, nebulous, and perhaps criminal or over the line or impeachable. It's always the behavior of others that's at issue in terms of the president's defenders. Wrong. We are here to look at the conduct of the President of the United States, not the conduct of the whistleblower, not the conduct of Adam Schiff. That's not what's at issue. If there are issues involving the whistleblower, Schiff, whomever, there are rules of the Senate, rules of the House, all kinds of procedures to deal with that. This is not the place. We're looking at the conduct of the President of the United States.
I want to get some of your questions in. One viewer wants to know, what's the difference between what Nixon did by having his people break into the Democratic headquarters to dig up information and what Trump did in Ukraine?
Great question. Because one of the abuses of power that Nixon was charged with and is in the articles of impeachment is a vast campaign of political espionage and sabotage, it's not worded quite this way, to undermine the Democrats' presidential campaign. How was that done? Nixon did not want to run in his second election for president against Senator Edmund Muskie of Maine.
Why? He thought
Muskie was the strongest candidate. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to run against Senator George McGovern, a great senator perhaps, but a very weak candidate. And Nixon, of course, was right about that. So this vast campaign, what Watergate was about was this vast campaign, in large measure, of political espionage and sabotage to undermine Muskie's campaign through dirty tricks, political espionage, break-ins, getting information about Muskie, sabotaging his campaign, and it succeeded. So what Nixon did was try to sabotage the campaign, the free and fair election and ability of the Democratic Party to hold its own primaries. And what has happened here? This president has enlisted the aid of a foreign power to do the same thing with the candidate that Trump perceived to be his strongest opponent, namely former Vice President Joe Biden, through a campaign of a kind of espionage and sabotage. There is a real similarity, but you do have to ask, well, what is really more grievous to the national security interests of the United States? What Nixon did or what Trump did? And you can make an argument, though Nixon did plenty of other things that undermine the national security of the U.S., that what Trump has done here by involving a foreign power and working to the aid and comfort of the Russians, whether knowingly, unknowingly, wittingly, half-wittingly, they're the beneficiaries of us, and our electoral process has been screwed as a result.
Another viewer wants to know, if abuse of power was part of the Nixon case, how can lawyers say it doesn't qualify for impeachment? Essentially, if...
You can't say that. In fact, the second article of impeachment...
So Dershowitz's argument, do you think that would have absolved Nixon?
Alan Dershowitz, who I don't know Alan well, but I've known him for 45 years or something, and not well at all. He has invented a catechism for the cult of Trump, not for the law, for the expediency of this trial, for the Republican senators to justify the unjustifiable through a legal theory. I'm not a lawyer. I covered the courts. No serious constitutional scholar that I know of believes anything like what Dershowitz has propounded.
Another question, if the president or a member of his administration has already spoken about a topic for which he's claiming executive privilege, how can it be privileged, and who can decide this?
First of all, in the Nixon tapes case, which resulted in the most important evidence being turned over to the special prosecutor, which led to Nixon's resignation, what the decision by the Supreme Court says is that in cases of dispute of privilege, a magistrate, a judge, should decide whether the claims are legitimate or not and parse it out. That's and this Chief Justice could do it right here on the spot. But this claim that has been made by the president's attorneys that you got to have this long, drawn-out process of going through the whole court system, not necessarily.
Another viewer wants to know, what did the president know and when did he know it? Probably one of the more famous quotes asked by Senator Baker during Watergate. How central is that same question nearly 50 years later in this impeachment case against President Trump?
It's part of the picture.
I mean, it gets to the Mitt Romney question, which is, what did the president do and when did he do it in terms of cutting off the aid?
That's different. But look, it is a pattern of, if we look at the testimony, Fiona Hill, the president's own aides, those who he had appointed to be the ambassador to the European Union who got involved in this, et cetera, it is clear. The president, step after step, look, ostensibly he's claiming I did this because I was concerned about corruption in the Ukraine. This would be the first instance we know of where this president has really been concerned about real corruption.
Got another question. If called as a witness, how can Hunter Biden's testimony play a role in the trial?
It's probably irrelevant. but it could play a big role in terms of equating, from the point of view of the Republicans, if the Democrats are going to get their witness in Bolton, they want to bring Hunter Biden in.
And their argument would be that Hunter Biden provides context about why the president of the United States was concerned about corruption in Ukraine and Burisma.
Yes. I mean, you can make that argument. I think most judges in a trial would probably say he's not relevant, but let it proceed. Let them be called. I think at this point, I'm not here to give advice to the Republicans or the Democrats, but the process of a fair trial would be better served with witnesses. And if it means that the Republicans get to bring in the witnesses they want, let them come in.
As you can see, they're on a 45-minute dinner break, which is why you're now seeing Mitch McConnell and others leaving the chamber. Here's a question that a lot of folks have been asking. What happens if 3 Republican senators join the 47 Democratic senators voting for witnesses and create a tie? How is a tie broken? I mean, there's a lot of people who have been focused on Chief Justice Roberts theoretically being able to break a tie. There's a question whether he would, even though, I mean, it doesn't seem like if he's following the Rehnquist model that he would even want to step into.
Well, the first answer is he has the legal ability and authority to break the tie. Would he choose to do so? I think the consensus of those who have watched the Chief Justice and the precedent, we don't think he would. But might he, for instance, ask both sides to file briefs on the question? He might do that.
But short of a ruling from him, if there's a tie, the motion fails. So if it's a motion to have witnesses and it's a tie and Chief Justice Roberts doesn't weigh in. Isn't that right?
Well, the parliamentarian and Roberts have to make some kind of decision about what is finality in that case. You would think that your supposition is right, but there might be, and in fact, I think there's some talk that Schumer is looking at some parliamentary devices around that.
I want to play something that House Manager Adam Schiff was asked about today, the argument that Dershowitz had made that we talked about, that Dershowitz made yesterday, essentially saying that the presidential quid pro quo aimed at re-election, or that's not impeachable if there are a number of motives for the president doing such a thing. Let's listen to Senator Schiff's response.
Almost half a century ago, we had a president who said, well, when the president does it, that means it is not illegal. That, of course, was Richard Nixon. Watergate is now 40 to 50 years behind us. Have we learned nothing in the last half century? Have we learned nothing at all? It seems like we're back to where we were. If the president says it, it's not illegal. Or Donald Trump's version, under Article 2, I can do whatever I want. Or Professor Dershowitz's point, if the president believes it helps his reelection, it is therefore in the national interest. He can do whatever he wants.
Do you think that's an apt analogy?
No, it's nonsense. The idea that the president can do what he wants, as Nixon claimed and as Trump claimed, and we've seen the video of Trump claiming it over and over about what the Second Amendment to the Constitution allows him to do. This is a trial. And I think where you can, or I can, embrace what the Republicans are saying is we get to look at both the facts and the law here and make a decision. But what the claim there is that if there is any ambiguity, then the president gets it passed. And that's nonsense.
That as long, you're right. The idea that as long as the president believes his or her reelection is in the public interest.
It is an insane catechism that once again the Oracle Dershowitz has dreamed up for the faithful.
Another viewer wants to know, says, hi, Carl, if this trial doesn't produce witnesses or documents, what would the headline be if this was the year 1974?
I think it would be seen as a travesty. And that is what this will be, is a travesty. It is a travesty in terms of what the Republicans have been arguing, especially now that their old argument, which is, well, you haven't shown us anything in terms of a person being here who witnessed anything. Well, now they don't want to hear from that witness or any other witnesses. So it is a travesty. It is an obstruction by the Republicans, and they are party to a cover-up.
Carl Bernstein, great to have you. We'll see you later tonight. That does it for Full Circle. We'll be back 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Remember, you can stream the show anytime by going to CNN.com/Full Circle. Till then, AC360 on CNN tonight. We're live at 8 and at 11 p.m., both live shows. Democratic Senator and impeachment juror Chris Coons is going to join me. I'll talk to him about where he thinks the count is, leaning ahead of the critical vote on witnesses, which will happen tomorrow. I'll see you soon.